Johannesburg, and we're talking about the digital migration process. We're going digital. We're switching from the analog signals that you've been experiencing for the many, many years of your life, and now what's going to happen is you're going to have a set-top box with your television, and what that will do is it'll receive the signal, it'll convert it into sounds and pictures. It will be receiving digital messages, and it will convert it into sounds and pictures, and you won't be able to watch television without this set-top box in the future. So there's going to be a massive rollout process of that. But to get a little bit more about this plan itself and where we are and how soon this change will happen, let's chat to Mr. Mokoetle, who's the Department of Communications DTT Program Head. Okay, so, I keep using 17 June as a kind of a date because we don't have the protection from the ITU for things like signal interference, etc., etc. We should have gone digital. The house hasn't come crashing down, but we certainly have to get on with it now. Where are we, and what happens next?
Well, actually, I'm glad that the house never came down, but in fact, we prepared for the house never to come down. Because I think many people never understood clearly exactly what the 17th of June meant. The 17th of June was not a day of switch on, switch off. Digital migration is not a single day event. And I think the slide that you will be showing here shows that digital migration is a process. Even the ITU itself and the SADC countries have planned it as an ecosystem in which a number of steps have to be taken before, in fact, you can reach the point of analog switch off. And even when analog switch off has happened, it doesn't mean you have digitally migrated completely. You have done a significant step. And in fact, this is what we witnessed as well in the neighboring countries of SADC. But this process, as Minister outlined earlier, it starts with the policy. You outline the policy, and as we know, we had some stumbling blocks in South Africa for a while around the approval of the policy. It was only when Minister Muthambi took over that we made that breakthrough, which was the biggest breakthrough in the policy progress in South Africa in communications since 2008, when we started drafting this policy of digital migration. But then again, South Africa never stopped. And this is why it was a bit unfortunate, actually, to read some of the literature from our journalists saying that we have not moved out of the blocks. This was completely untrue and uninformed. Because as you'll see in terms of the ecosystem itself, other steps were taken successfully. ICASA, the regulator, which is the next step after policy, had already completed all its regulatory processes, in fact, ready to issue the channels. After that, the network operator, SENTECH, and you heard from the chairperson of SENTECH, SENTECH has already delivered the entire network of digital migration. In fact, in South Africa, we already have dual illumination, which means if you have a set-top box out there that can receive the digital signal, then definitely you will be digital. So, in fact, we were already ready for digital. SENTECH is able to cover 100% of the country, 84% of the population. And why 84%? It is because there's 16% that has to be covered with a DTH box, right? After SENTECH, the standards are ready. SABC had finished SANS 862, which is the standard that is to guide this entire process, to ensure that, and some of the things that are included in that standard is to ensure that we support the South African manufacturing industry, to insist that the set-top boxes will be produced inside South Africa. So the standards were ready as well. After the standards, we also have what do we have? SENTECH has completed, ICASA has completed. Our neighbors. We had to look at, as we approach June 17th, of course we had to take into account the implications of June 17th. you will no longer be protected by ITU. But then you needed to make sure that you don't receive interferences. We analyzed and determined, what does this 17th of June actually means? What does this interference actually means? What it meant is simply that you will no longer be protected from interference of signals coming from your neighbors, or if you are sending a signal that is interfering with them, you may not be protected. This is why it required our minister to go around the region and sign cooperation agreements. Now, interestingly, about those cooperation agreements, it is what SADC itself has called for all its countries. As you know, SADC has extended the deadline, in fact, for the SADC region up to December 2016. Now, just to conclude then, what is the situation where we stand now? The only issue we were left with to reach the critical point of analog switch-off was the devices, the set-top boxes, for people to be able to receive. And I'm saying it's not a train smash, also because even in the countries that have switched off, we were in Namibia just a few weeks ago. In Walvis Bay, people still don't have the devices. They are faced with those prices. On the 17th of June, when the United Nations, the ITU deadline reached, there were 5 countries in Africa that were ready to have met the deadline. However, all they had done was to switch off their borderline transmitter networks so that they don't interfere with their neighbors, nor are they interfered with. Internally, they were still rolling out the analog switch off. So, most countries have taken long. The United Kingdom took about 13 years to do the digital migration. We have taken 8 years, of which we were still going through the obstacle of policy. But because we could not wait on that, we did all other things. Minister Muthambi has done it now in a few months. We are looking at a period of about 18 to 24 months to be able to complete the entire digital migration and to release the digital dividend. But before that, we will have reached the stage of analog switch-off, and we will be advising Minister Muthambi to declare that period very, very soon.
Okay, all right. So I just want to get back to this encryption thing, because that's the crux of the matter. There's an appeal, I believe. Is that going to affect this process even further, or are we just going to carry on now? And also, in there was this issue of the reason we need to encrypt is to prevent piracy. How has that been addressed?
Yeah. The current application for leave to appeal by ETV, as I said earlier, does not affect the rollout of the digital migration process. I'm raising it because you remember the relief that they've sought earlier. And none of the reliefs that were said had sought included maybe a request for the court to interdict the implementation of the broadcasting digital migration process. Hence, we've been working throughout. Then, because what they wanted, they themselves, was just there is a clause, 512A and 512B of the policy. They want it to be reviewed and set aside. But it's about this encryption issue, because you remember 2012, the same ETV took the minister to court. By then, the minister has allocated a SENTECH to be responsible for set-top boxes rollout. Then, what we have done in the policy now was because there's this issue of encryption and conditional access, that people tend to mix those issues. Because with the existing policy, we had to define what is a set-top box control system. And it's not conditional access. Because conditional access is the system wherein broadcasters like Hlaudi and others, they use to encrypt their content. Okay. But now, here what you are talking about was the security feature that will then protect our boxes from being taken outside to avoid piracy, as you have indicated. Okay. And then remember also, Peter, access to broadcasting is a constitutional right in terms of Section 192 of the Constitution of this country. There is no way that we are going to, with this conditional access, going to lock out our poor households, because by implication, it comes with a lot. The technical guy will tell you, it comes with a lot of issues. Now, for now, I'm a decoder holder of DSTV. You know what happens when they switch me off? I need to stand on the line, phone their call center. You'll be told your caller number 2000 and something. It's airtime that I'm using. And then I have to hold. That's why I had to make sure that I pay my subscription so that I don't get cut off. Yeah. But think about the poor old man somewhere in Northern Cape who's relying on a pension grant. Where is she going to get this money? Because there's a lot of issues that has to be dealt. You have to have a control center wherein there should be people, a lot of logistical issues that have to be. Apart from that, that system needs to be maintained.
Okay.
And and also, if you read the court judgment also, they have raised these issues to say, why will South Africa have to do that, whereas other countries have not done it? Okay. The judge has raised that issue to say that in all in short is that the current application leave of appeal does not affect the rolling out of the digital migration project. And since the application was brought, even the court judgment itself, we've been hard at work. The project management team, together with the digital migration implementation task team, they've been hard at work to make sure that we roll out this program. And Mr. Mokoetle has indicated that it's not a one aspect thing, it's a cycle.
All right. So I'm not sure who's going to answer this question, but so you've got these set-top boxes. About 5 million of them are going to be given out, subsidized for free, which means it's an asset, actually. There's a danger always in a situation like that somebody will say, I'm going to go to the post office, I'm going to get it, but I'm going to sell it to someone else. How do we prevent that? Because somebody is getting an asset for free that they're supposed to use, and there's a danger that that could end up in somebody else's hands. What do we do? Yeah.
Well, yes, we have considered all of those factors, but USAASA, and as I'm sure as the chairperson will add, has worked out a qualifying criteria, which we are still refining, and we are still in the process of consulting to finalize the nitty-gritty details of this qualifying criteria. But the key aspects of it, basically, is that you should be able to, it should be an income, a certain income level in a household. The cabinet policy is based on funding the indigent. And the issue is around that definition of indigent. Television households. That's what it says. In other words, the majority of us here who are sitting in this room, well, not the majority, all of you who are sitting here, and those who are watching this show through a dish will not have or will not be qualifying to receive that decoder. This is for the most poor of our people.
All right, I guess
so. That is the fundamental thing. It is based on that. However, we are also looking at saying a television license may well be required. But as I'm saying, we are refining, and as a project team, we are looking at all of these matters. Does that discriminate more of our people or not? The point, however, is that a television license is a law in South Africa. It's not about paying Hlaudi's television license fees. It is the law. So it is required. It's a requirement. Now, we will be looking at all of these factors as we move towards the distribution point. But these are the fundamental criteria that have been set by Cabinet. It must be the indigent and
All
certain
right.
basic
We'll
rights.
explore that a little bit further, because again, my other fear is I get a set-top box and then somebody comes into my house and steals it. What do I do? How do I get another one? How do I protect it? That we need to explore. But we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'd like to chat about that as well. Okay, stay with us.